Our buddy John McLaughlin, the chairman of Iowa Firearms Coalition, and joining us once again, Sarah Joy Albrecht from Hold My Guns. We ran into her at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas back in January, and IFC made a small contribution to help further things along. So first of all, Sarah, welcome once again. And how are things going now since we saw you over the winter?
Thank you, John. It's so good to see you again. Things are going really well with Hold My Guns. I really appreciate how at SHOT Show you helped to emphasize the importance of having a personal safety plan, and that personal safety plan rolled out to over 7,000 members of A Girl and a Gun to do as their journal entry for January, and that continues to be downloaded all the time from folks in our community. We are now up to 5 gun shop partners. We have at least 3 more that are very close to signing on as partners. So our goal of becoming a national program is being realized. We are also helping to teach QPR suicide prevention training, which is a certified course. And I taught that at A Girl and a Gun National Conference just last month. And it's just beautiful to see how our firearms community is taking personal responsibility in a practical way to help address some of the concerns that we have, like suicide or theft of firearms or stolen firearms used in crime. So awesome things are happening, and it's always good to catch up with you.
Well, let's get right to the chase here on what folks in Iowa can do specifically to help you. And I just want to encourage our gun shop owners, if you're listening to this and you've got a favorite gun shop, go to them and tell them about what you're about to hear about Hold My Guns. So, you know, we've had a lot of horrible incidents in the country recently, and obviously we're going to start hearing talk of red flag laws and maybe restrictions on different type of firearms. So let's just throw something out. Let's say there's somebody in your family, they're talking weird, they're spending a lot of time in the basement on the computer, or maybe, you know, fantasizing about guns or killing or things like that, and you have access to their firearm. What can you do through Hold My Gun to maybe get that away from that person legally without having to, you know, get you know, attorneys and police and things like that involved? Or is that even possible at this point?
Well, I think it's important to, first of all, if you see that someone in your household is struggling and they're showing warning signs,
right,
you have a responsibility as a member of that household to confront that person and say, hey, I'm noticing there is this change and I am concerned about these things. If you are in that household, you might not be that gun owner, John. And so it's a really tough thing because you can't steal someone's firearm, even if they are in your household. But you can strongly suggest and say, I will go with you, let's seek help. You can strongly suggest that they take their firearm voluntarily to Hold My Guns location, because the gun owner is the person that needs to voluntarily do that. And so there are definitely tools in place that can help with that, to do that in a voluntary way. And I think that we have to be very careful in these difficult situations. First of all, we always grieve the loss of life. Life is valuable and precious, and we need to protect it. That's why we carry a firearm in the first place. Right. And we need to be able to protect our right to bear arms, to keep and bear arms. And so we have to find solutions that not only help to save lives, but also help to preserve rights so that we can continue to save lives. And the temptation is to think, well, just because now there's a crisis, and we know that, you know, in the gun community, we say things like, guns are not the problem, guns are just a tool. But while those things are true, and I'm not saying but for the sake of infringement, please don't hear that. Oh no, she said but. We have to remember that if people are the problem, if criminal behavior, that's the problem, then how do we get to the root of that to actually address the real issues? And that would be, how can we help someone who's in crisis to make a life-affirming choice to seek help? And one of the obstacles for gun owners to seek help is they're concerned about losing their rights and losing their property. And that's why our voluntary program not only helps to empower people to seek help, but it also helps to preserve rights. It helps people to manage their private matters before they become public ones. And we have to humbly recognize that any of us at any time could find ourselves in a crisis situation where stressors from work, where maybe a divorce, the loss of a loved one unexpectedly, there's a myriad of risk factors, what sets a person over the edge. And so we, instead of creating an us and them culture of those people over there are problems, we need to say, hey, it starts at home with us. What are we doing in our own homes to make sure that the mental health atmosphere in our home is a healthy one? And what can we do to make sure that we're okay in a voluntary way to seek help and to affirm that? So it is a very delicate subject, and yet we have resources that can help to bring hope here and actually address the heart issues. And I think it's important to do that in a way that does not infringe on rights.
Yeah, and the speaking out that you mentioned about so important, because after these horrible events, many times we'll hear later from family members or friends who saw the warning signs and just kind of, let them go. And that's a hard thing to live with, because if you didn't say anything and something bad happened, that's a big burden to carry. So you've had this program, a short time. It created a lot of buzz at the SHOT Show. You got some major manufacturers behind you. Maybe too early to say, but have you had any success? Have you heard stories yet of folks that have actually brought firearms to, an FFL and had them, safely store them through the crisis?
Yes, we have. In fact, right after SHOT Show, right after the interview that we did, John, someone wrote to me and they said, right now, I don't think I should be around firearms. Can you please tell me more about your program? And we were able to connect them to one of our FFL partners. So I really appreciate the outreach that you have helped with. And also for your donation. It really helped us to, I have to show you, I have right in front of me our brand new brochures. These are beautiful.
Oh, wow.
These were, you can see right on front, voluntary firearm storage for gun owners by gun owners. These were made possible directly from the contributions that happened at SHOT Show. So this helps us to reach out to people and share there is hope available, and you have the opportunity to responsibly store your firearms in a voluntary way. And this, your efforts, John, made it possible. We're so grateful. What we're really excited about is that, how many times, John, have you seen like a movie poster where you see that the actor like James Bond or whatever, right? And their fingers on the trigger and you're looking at it and you're like, this does not even appeal to gun owners, right?
Yes, right.
So our whole team are made up of firearms instructors and range safety officers. And so when we were putting together this brochure, every firearm in these pictures, the fingers off the trigger, they're pointed in a safe direction, and there are buddies. You're shooting with a friend. Mm-hmm. And this top photograph here was donated by Jeff Sparandeo, who's with he does photography for USCCA, and here is Matt Baines from Lobster Media, and he is he does professional shooting sports photography. So these two photos were donated, and we're just really grateful that the firearms community came together to make it possible that we can get the word out. And that's really what it's all about. It's about taking responsibility as a community to provide a solution and not just simply say, shall not be infringed, which is true. Right. But then what's the next step? How can we actually help to reduce some crime? How can we actually help to reduce suicide and make a difference that shows the beauty of liberty? And that's what we're doing.
So, and it's an excellent way for the gun stores and stuff to say, hey, look at this public outreach we're doing. We're not just about selling firearms. We're about keeping people, safe and alive, not just in a self-defense thing, but in a mental crisis, like so many of the examples that you talked about. So let's talk specifically about someone that's watching this. They go to their gun store. What do they tell them, and how do they get them in touch with you to make the connection and start, branching this program up, from a few to hopefully across the country soon?
Yes. What gun owners can do is they can first go to holdmyguns.org, and they can see if there is a location near them. We have a map, and the next step would be to contact that gun shop near you and briefly describe, hey, I would like to use your Hold My Gun service, and that gun shop will help you set up an appointment for you to bring in firearms. They will give you instructions. They're mostly a retail location, so you wouldn't want to just walk into a gun shop with a big box of firearms, right? So you'd make an appointment, and there is a customer-facing contract that is very clear about terms of service. So you are still the owner of that firearm. You are temporarily transferring possession to that FFL, and it's in their inventory. It is covered by their general liability insurance. We believe that firearms are an investment. I have firearms that I saved up for, and so it's very important for us that those Hold My Guns customers, who are customers of that gun shop, that their investment is protected. So that is all very clearly outlined in that contract. And when that gun owner wants to pick up their firearm, they would fill out a 4473 and attest that they are not a prohibited person, and they pass that background check and they pick up their firearms. In some states where there are additional laws in place, we do have to follow all federal, state, and local laws. It's a regulated space. And so things like a waiting period might apply.
Okay.
However, it is so much better than losing your rights and losing your firearms. So, those laws can change, but the goal here is to help a person to be able to preserve their rights and to get their property back, and to be able to seek help or manage whatever personal matters they're trying to manage at home.
So you mentioned, how valuable this service is. Is there any cost for, someone that brings a loved one in with them and say, hey, we need you to store, the shotgun for a few months until things blow over? Is there any cost involved in that?
There is a cost involved. We encourage our FFL partners to set a market price that is low and affordable. Okay. And some of our partners have even talked about offering things like a scholarship program, so that it can help offset cost if a person might need it. They do not ask why that person is storing a firearm. That's private information. And so for all they know, that person might be selling their home, but doesn't want someone to have unauthorized access to their firearms. Mm-hmm. So the cost is regardless of the situation, because we don't know what it is. However, some places do offer scholarships. So ask about that. If you're not able to afford it, they can make arrangements with you potentially. We leave it up to the FFL.
Okay. Well, another segment of this you talked just a little bit about in the beginning is teaching folks like myself that are firearms guys that are out there teaching or on the range and watching folks to recognize some of the clues of suicide. And we just had a horrible event in Iowa recently that was a double murder suicide, at least it appears that way. So if someone had been at let's say a shooting range, and you see someone acting a little bit odd, or you see some signs, how can we get more training to understand what the signs are, what to do? And I know that's something you're deeply involved with.
It is, and I'm passionate about that. The reason why we started sponsoring QPR training and why Hold My Gun sponsored me to become a QPR, it stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. Okay. It is by the QPR Institute, which is a notable suicide prevention program that you can become certified in. The reason why we started teaching that is because 2 of our board members who are instructors had situations where someone signed up to take a class, mm-hmm. and they both times our board members stopped the lesson. One stopped before it even began, and they said, hey, I'm just wondering, are you thinking of taking your own life? In one case, the person said, actually, I am struggling with depression and I really shouldn't be around firearms. Another person said, actually, yes, I came here today to rent a firearm and take my own life. And so that board member was able to connect them with crisis services. Mm-hmm. So we're really grateful that in both of those situations, our board members were able to trust their gut and say, hey, something seems unsafe or off about this person. I'm going to speak up. And that's the first step with the Question, Persuade, and Refer training, is to notice when there is a change to normal baseline behaviors, and they recognize that and they said something, and 2 lives were saved because of those efforts. And what we recognized in our board meeting as we were sharing these stories is that there really isn't a lot of training it's out there, but it's not necessarily prevalent in the firearms community. And as a range safety officer myself, I realized, whenever I go to an event, and you've probably had this experience as well, whenever you go to an event, you look at the standard operating procedures, or the SOPs, right?
Mhm.
And how often, John, have you seen in those standard operating procedures anything about mental health,
Right.
about calling the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, what to do if someone on the line has a crisis? Like, do you call a ceasefire? How do you make sure that the rest of the people on the line are safe if you have to step away and help someone? It's not out there. And so in my classes, I've been encouraging people in our community, hey, do you shoot at a local range? Ask to see the standard operating procedures. You should already be aware of emergency procedures if you're there, because you might get called on to flag down the ambulance or to grab a first aid kit. If you're on the range, you have a responsibility, to call ceasefire if you see someone behaving in an unsafe way, whether or not you're the range safety officer. So you have a right to ask, hey, if I'm going to be shooting here, I want to know what the rules are. And then you can say, what do we do if someone's in a mental health crisis? And so with training to recognize warning signs, to learn how to ask people how they're doing, and even ask a hard question if you think, are you thinking of taking your own life? And ask them specifically about that. And then to help to refer them to resources that are professional. It's not setting people up to be a counselor. It's saying, I'm going to help you in a warm handoff to seek help. So that's what I love about it. And it is something that is really taking off in our community and is encouraging to me. And it's one thing to have an idea to do something, but you actually have to have the practical tools and the ability to implement it for it to make a difference. And again, when people get involved, that's what it's doing. It's allowing us to share this valuable life-saving information in our community and to certify people with a certificate that is good for 2 years. So why not add it to, your other credentials for being a firearms professional? And maybe, John, if someone has intent to take their own life, when they look at an instructor page, they look at RSO page, they might say, wait a second, this person has suicide prevention training. Instead of making an appointment to take my own life on the range, I think I'm going to call and say, hey, I need some help. I see you have training in this. Can we talk? That's my hope.
Is this an online class or is it strictly in person right now?
It's an in-person class and it can be taught online. There are some stipulations for it. The benefit of taking it through the Hold My Guns offering is that it's actually from within the firearms community. So you're able to customize that program to meet your audience's needs. And so we include statistics about firearms. We don't lose sight of the fact that there are between 60,000 and 2.5 million defensive gun uses every year. So it's important that we protect rights. And I always bring that into the training. Like, why are we doing what we're doing in the first place? We want to protect life. And then to look at more specifically the numbers for suicide or some of the risk factors for people who might take their own life on a range. There have been studies that show that it's most likely that if a person is thinking of taking their own life, they're going to come to the range alone, and they'll most likely rent a firearm. So looking at that combined with other situational clues like, hey, at the last club meeting, I heard that this person was separated from their spouse. Well, a break in a relationship is a risk factor in 2/3 of suicides on ranges. So you might see that person there and you might say, hey, I noticed you're shooting today. How are you doing? And maybe everything's fine, but you're putting all those clues together and you're approaching people with dignity and respect. So that's what we're doing.
That's awesome work. And all this good stuff that you're doing, that can really go to counteract some of the stuff that's going to come in politically, trying to, like you said, strip the rights away by saying, hey, look at this. Are you getting any other organizations, like NSSF or I don't know if there's a league of FFLs or how they communicate to each other, but anything we can do to help you get the word out besides just doing things like this?
I always appreciate the opportunity to speak on podcasts and really reach our firearms community in this way. Many of us listen to podcasts on a daily basis.
Yep.
And so it is a great way to get the word out and hopefully also bring hope to people who are hearing this, who might be struggling, to know that there are resources out there and that our firearms community genuinely cares. So that's really important. But there is an opportunity to reach out to bigger organizations and say, you know, from within our own firearms community, Hold My Guns is making a difference. What can we do to help support them? We did have that support at SHOT Show,
Yes.
but we haven't had any major support from some of the large organizations out there that you know, are representing our community in a public way. So there's an opportunity there. And I would say what a tremendous thing it would be when things are politically charged. Okay, great. Now we can, you know, like an incident happens and then all of a sudden everyone calls for gun control.
Right.
But again, people are hurting, so they want to do something. But if our goal is to actually reach gun owners, because these crimes are committed with firearms, so at some point that person was a gun owner or they are a gun owner, right? So how do we actually reach people before they get into a crisis in a way that is not infringing on their rights, but instead is empowering them to seek help? And if we can do that, you know, someone sticks a microphone in the face of one of these organizations, they can say, actually, we're doing things to empower people to seek help. We're encouraging voluntary firearm storage. We're encouraging having a personal safety plan. We're encouraging suicide prevention training amongst our range and retail locations and amongst our instructors and range safety officers. So we're actually doing things to get to the root of this problem and not just putting band-aids on it. So what a tremendous message that would be to the world. And I think that would save more lives.
100% agree. We appreciate what you're doing. Just remind folks once again how to find you online and how they can support your mission and keep track of what you're doing.
Thank you. So our website is holdmyguns.org. You can find us on social media at holdmyguns.org, and we are on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We also have a Telegram channel for people who like to receive their news that way.
Yep.
You can donate through our links in our bio on our social media, or if you go to holdmyguns.org, there's a link there. We also encourage businesses to get involved. You don't have to be in the firearms community if you're a business owner to participate in donating to Hold My Guns and to show I support this mission. Have a roundup program, you know, at the register, or share with your customers, hey, I want to let you know what difference that we can make in our community if we care about helping to save lives. And so we just encourage people to get involved. And then also, you know, be sure if you're in your community to share, hey, there are solutions out there that are non-legislative and they already are saving lives and make a difference. So let's get involved with that. I encourage people to reach out to, and if you have a certain skill set that you think would be helpful, please let me know, because it is a beautiful thing when people are working in the trenches together to make a difference and using their gifts and talents to really help people and make a difference. So we welcome volunteers as well.
Well, we want to commend you for certainly making a difference and encourage everyone to go out and support Hold My Guns and the efforts you're doing. And let's hope this thing just takes off and becomes the go-to place for folks in need nationwide.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, John.
Yep. Bye-bye.